Budgets are always hugely political exercises, particularly when there's an election looming. So it came as no surprise that George Osborne delivered a particularly political budget this year, looking towards the 2015 general election. What was a surprise, however, was some of the detail. The Chancellor had been under pressure from his own MPs to take more people out of the top-rate 40% tax band, rather than concentrating all his help on the lower paid. In the end, he ignored their calls, fully aware that to do so would play into Labour's claim that he was always helping his wealthy pals. He did indeed raise the lower tax threshold to £10,500, a policy pushed heavily by the Liberal Democrats, but which he now calls his own. And that allowed him to claim he was presenting a budget for, you guessed it, hard-working families. But that was not going to grab headlines because it had been heavily predicted beforehand. So everyone was expecting the Chancellor to have a nice big juicy rabbit to pull out of his budget hat, and he didn't disappoint. And this year it was a rather well-fed, grey-haired rabbit. In a move that took everyone by surprise, Osborne focused significant help onto pensioners and savers. These are two large groups of voters who've been feeling neglected and taken for granted. Low interest rates in particular have been hitting them hard. But perhaps more importantly, they are traditionally seen as Tory voters, and the fear is they'd started drifting away and looking for alternatives, notably in the shape of Nigel Farage's UKIP. So Osborne's carefully targeted help was immediately seen as a way of wooing them back into the Tory fold. Ed Miliband took the rather unusual decision not to bother mentioning the detail of the budget when he responded to the Chancellor. Instead, he repeated the mantra Labour will be using right through till the general election. Do you feel better off now than you did 5 years ago? It's probably not a good plan to get into the detail of a budget on the day itself, because they seldom end up being as billed. The devil, as they say, is in the detail. But Miliband took it to extremes by hardly mentioning any of the Chancellor's measures, concentrating instead on his attack on the cost of living crisis. It will be up to Ed Balls, the Shadow Chancellor, to take the package apart line by line when he responds to the full debate later in the week. But it's a pretty fair bet that cost of living crisis will feature prominently. And that's it for this budget week. To keep in touch with all the political news from Westminster, go to our website ibtimes.co.uk.